Our GM caps. Well, you are. I'm not. And we're going to talk about the trade rumors because they're always flying. Now, I need you to pay attention to my wording here, Max Kellerman. Right. Which team needs to make a trade?
Ready for this?
Yeah.
The New York Knicks need to make a trade.
Okay.
They have multiple first rounders, but they're not lottery picks, right? And their team is kind of like that. They have a lot of good players, no great players. Derrick Rose was once great. He's a very good player, but that's what he is. They have no A's, a bunch of B's and B pluses. You have young, improving players that got selected. Barrett, but he's not great. Maybe one day he can make all-star teams. Who knows? Julius Randle, we saw in the playoffs, is at best a third best option on a championship caliber team. They need to package the stuff they have, including their draft picks, including maybe a player or two, and get into a position to nab an impact player. Whether that's a guy who's been drafted recently on another team and who has real upside, or whether that's someone in this draft.
Well, I know that they're 19 and 21. They've tried to package that to get up into the lottery to get one of two players potentially, Chris Duarte from Oregon, or the guy they really love, Davion Mitchell from Baylor.
Mitchell, yes. Duarte, no. Like
Mitchell's more of a now
shoot,
guy.
so what?
Yeah, Mitchell's more of an upside, super high upside guy, but that's why they can't get into the lottery. 19 and 21 will not do it.
Right. Well, they got to maybe package some players and see why. If they move up for Duarte, that's a problem.
For me, I would look at Detroit. Now, this is not a knock on Cade, who I just waxed poetic about.
Yeah,
at least I tried. But think about what Boston did a few years back when they traded from 1 to 3. They weren't sold on Fultz. They loved Tatum. They knew they could get him. I said then he was the most offensively polished player in the draft. That was a great pick. If you're Detroit and you have a very depleted roster, why not look at maybe moving down 1 or 2 picks with Houston or Cleveland?
Pass on Luka? Okay.
Maybe, but if you can get Mobley or Jalen Green, who we all believe are
pass on Luka to get Kobe or AD?
Yeah, exactly. Or McGrady. And add more capital. That's a really interesting play. Now, I think it's unlikely. I know they've listened to talks. They weren't 100% sure that Cade was the guy, but it is something to consider if you're the Pistons.
So you're saying Cade is not appreciably... He's not of a different level player than Mobley or Green.
I think Cade, Green, and Mobley are all in a very special tier by themselves.
Interesting. Okay, because a lot of people, it seemed like he was head and shoulders above the pack.
I think it's like 1A, 1B, and 2.
I like that. Okay, Max, who will make a trade?
Okay, ready for this? I think the Warriors are going to make a deal.
Really?
Because they have a very shrewd front office. Because Klay Thompson's coming back. Steph performed at MVP level. Draymond's getting a little long in the tooth. They have 2 lottery picks.
Yeah,
they have Wiseman, who's like a lottery pick, but he's got a year less control, but a year more experience. They have some guys who can play, like Poole and Pascal. They have some guys on the roster, but they don't really have that third awesome piece to go with Steph and Klay. And in the NBA, you never want to break $1 into 4 quarters. But if you got 4 quarters, you can go find $1, you go do it. So like my rationale for the Knicks, I think the Warriors have so much good stuff. They have a surplus of assets. They're going to go get something great.
I like that. I'll also look at the Philadelphia 76ers. We're back to Ben Simmons. Now, I don't think it's going to happen tonight. I've been told around the league that Ben Simmons will get traded, but Philadelphia, Daryl Morey specifically, feels like let's let his stock come back to earth a little bit. It dipped so much, it plummeted during the playoffs. He's still a very good player, a very young player, but Philadelphia knows that Embiid is the guy. So look at Dallas. Dallas is a really interesting potential trade partner. Kristaps Porzingis needs a change of scenery, as does Simmons. And
wait, Porzingis for Simmons?
I think that's
so.
Really
you're going from 2 teams with like unbelievable point guard center combos, Simmons, Embiid, and Luka Doncic, and you're creating twin towers with Embiid, Porzingis, and 2 point guards with Luka and Simmons?
But I would, and this is not an insider, I'm just saying this is what I like if I'm both teams. Both teams need a new start, or both players need a new start. But if you're Dallas, you don't need to play Simmons in the same role. He can play off the ball as well as a cutter, and also alleviate some of Luka's ball handling responsibilities. Think about it, Mac. It's not that crazy, and the salaries match up pretty well, Molly.
That would be devastating combinations in both towns if Porzingis stayed healthy.
No. Where should he be traded?
Okay, I floated this a couple weeks ago. I'm looking at Portland. Lillard wants out at this point, pretty obviously, right? Yep. Now, you got to slow down these high-powered Western Conference offenses, and they can't do it with that small backcourt. And this involves also moving your bigs. But the first step is, what can you get for Lillard? I think you could probably get Simmons, Thibault, who's second-team all-defense already, who's going to be, maybe this year, the best defensive player in the NBA, and maybe hold that position for like 5 or 10 years, right? Like, he's special defensively. You probably get Simmons, Thibault, maybe Maxey, and draft picks, something like that. And it's worth it for Philadelphia because they bring in a superstar who paired with Embiid and then, lesser Tobias Harris. You have more of an answer to Brooklyn if Brooklyn's healthy.
All right, last one here, quickly. Give me a sleeper or a GM. I mean, a GM or a gem, excuse me.
I mentioned Sengun. I'm going to go with Josh Giddey. He's a gym sleeper hybrid because he's been talked a lot about Memphis at 10. He has risen over the last 18 months. He's only 18 years old. He's the youngest player in the draft, Australian kid. You mentioned Thibault. He didn't make the Australian team, but he went up against Thibault in workouts, and it was really good. And Matisse talked about that. I think with Giddey, you're talking about a 6'8" point forward who handles the ball extremely well, very athletic. He was the rookie of the year in the NBL where LaMelo and R.J. Hampton were. He does not shoot it particularly well, but he has good mechanics again. He's a worker. He's a learner. And everything about him that I've heard is that Josh Giddey is going to be a really, really good NBA player, if not an all-star. He's a sleeper gem at 10. I love the Australian.
After Schmitz went on the air earlier and talked about Davion Mitchell, I don't know if this qualifies, but I'm going with it anyway. When a guy named D. Mitchell, an undersized scorer named D. Mitchell who wears number 45 is available, draft him. D. Mitchell, number 45, draft him. Like, it's the same sort of thing. He's a great defender. He can obviously handle. He's a little guard.
He plays bigger.
And he can shoot. What else is there exactly? What else is there?
And 2 years ago, he was buried. Davion Mitchell was on the Auburn bench. Transfers to Baylor, becomes a national champ, and one of the premier players in this draft. I love that call, Max.
Absolutely. Jordan, this was a lot of fun. Great chopping it up with you. Enjoy the draft
tonight. Enjoy the draft.
Yes, and hopefully we will see you soon.
Hope so.
Do this again. All right. When we
and Rock will have about 10 days to try and fix it, appease it, but Kyrie Irving firing Rock Nation on draft day.
On draft day.
It's interesting. It's a nugget.
Timing is interesting. Remember Aaron Rodgers, what went down on draft day, but that kind of worked out. All right, so let's dive into some of those names because you got the knowledge and I want to know. So the projected board, let's start with Cade Cunningham. Why is he that consensus number one?
So Cade Cunningham is really the classic modern-day point guard when we think about size, 6'8", 220, and his ability to manipulate pick and roll. Now, when NBA teams look at Cade Cunningham, they see a guy that plays the pick and roll three ways. He has his man he reads, then the next read is the drop man, the big, the guy in help coverage, and then now as a result of being able to do that, he's now able to get downhill and create 2-on-1 and 3-on-2 condensed half-court situations. That's where you see the lob, the dunk shot. He has a really good stop and pop game. His pick and roll floater is very good. He has got that size and strength to finish, and obviously extremely unselfish as well. So Cade Cunningham, from the full package standpoint of manipulating pick and roll in the half court, which you need in the playoffs, as we saw, he has it.
So who's the comp? He's good. If he goes number one overall, who's the comp in the NBA right now or ever?
Well, I see Luka Doncic. I see a lot of that. Unselfish, same size, similar length. Pedigree for Cade Cunningham is elite. You know, when we think about Doncic, he was 18. He wins the EuroLeague MVP. That will never happen again. Cade Cunningham has been the number one player in his draft class for the last 3 years. He has maintained that throughout a lot of pressure, a lot of really good players coming up behind him, and he has been that guy. And like Doncic, he's able to control the game without scoring, and also when he has the ball in his hands, he doesn't need to have the elite quickness. He has that great pace and three-level scoring that you need from an elite point guard.
You mentioned Luka was like supernaturally confident and mature. And you think Cade fits into that profile?
I do. I think he is the full package. And when you talk to people around him, they say, great kid, worker, wants to be great. Now, we hear that a lot during the draft.
Yeah.
But Cade Cunningham is the full package in terms of what you would want if you're the Detroit Pistons.
Okay, so tell me this. Tom Gore's team, the city of Detroit.
They need it.
We need
11 guys named Jalen in this draft, and Jalen wants Cade.
Right? No, but honestly, with talking about Cade, like how much of a difference maker is he? If they get him right now, are we talking playoffs?
No, not playoffs, because that roster still is depleted. But he now gives you the path 3-4 years down the road of elite young player. Guys will want to come play with him because he's so unselfish. And I think he's the kind of player and human that Detroit needs. You know, the Pistons haven't had for 10, 15 years since the, Chauncey and Rip and Tayshaun, they haven't had a franchise cornerstone.
Days,
that's Cade Cunningham, and that's why he's been so talked about for the number one pick for so long.
All right, so the Lions, back to the Lions for
Luka,
3 or 4 years.
That's quite a comp.
Lions is another story.
Jalen Green, you have him going 2 overall to Houston, or most people do.
Yeah, and that's what Mike Schmitz is right on that. I think with Houston, what have they loved for so long? They love wings. The NBA needs wings. Jalen Green is an explosive 6'5", 180-pound wing that can attack downhill. We talk about three-level scoring. He has it. He really elevates too. You know, we talk about below the rim finishers, at the rim, and then above the rim. Jalen Green is an above the rim finisher who really elevates, and he also loves the big game. If you go back to the G League bubble in the playoffs, this guy got better every week. And the final game, which they lost, he goes for 30+ and dominated. And he was the best player on the floor for a lot of that bubble against grown men, NBA caliber players. That's Jalen Green.
Elite athletic wings are really, we're in a point guard lead. We're in a big lead.
We need wings.
And yet the elite athletic wings are the guys you want, right? Who is the comp?
T-Mac, Kobe. That's the explosiveness with this kid, though, because with those guys, when they got out on the open floor, they were dominant. And you knew what was going to happen. You look at T-Mac highlights here, young T-Mac, young Kobe. That is exactly the type of talent that Jalen Green is. And as he gets older and fills out, gets up to 190, 200, he'll be able to get that T-Mac kind of mid-post game, that Kobe patented low-post game as he gets stronger.
Kobe, this is a lot for me to take right now.
Now, I'm not saying he's Kobe and T-Mac, but when you ask around the league about who does Jalen Green remind you of if he's able to reach his ceiling, those are the types of names that you're hearing.
Wow, it's a lot.
Okay, let's jump down the board a bit. Jordan, tell me what you know about Scotty Barnes.
Scotty Barnes, this guy has a lot, from an offensive standpoint, maybe the most exciting player in this draft. Great footwork, 6'9", 7'3" wingspan, extremely long. Didn't shoot it super well at Florida State, but really good mechanically as well. Leonard Hamilton, their head coach, has talked about Scotty Barnes as being one of the most unbelievable players he's ever been around. And Scotty Barnes is also that kind of kid with a three-level ability. You see the stop and pop game, the ability to get to the basket. He's only he's 6'9", he's only 18, 19 years old. He might grow a little bit more. He'll get more into that frame. With Scotty Barnes, you're getting right now an NBA-ready offensive player.
Is the reason he's not even higher in this draft because of the shooting? You know, in today's NBA game, if you can't shoot it from the outside, you're devalued a bit, right?
100%. But listen, I heard one scout said he has Giannis-like qualities. So Giannis, obviously, Max, still working on his shooting, improved. Scotty Barnes has good mechanics, way better mechanics than Giannis did at that age. But you can start to see, now, I don't think Scotty's in that class of athleticism, but the length and the ability to manipulate, look at that beautiful behind the back ball screens, that's Scotty Barnes. Also super intelligent and a really unselfish playmaker.
So what's the comp?
I think it's Giannis.
It is Giannis.
It's a smaller version.
Giannis.
Smaller version, but that's why Scotty Barnes for a long time, you heard maybe he could go 1, maybe he could go 2, and you mentioned the shooting. But mechanically, he's sound, and he's talked about, I feel I've already become a better shooter. And I was told in workouts he shot the ball a lot better than he did during the season.
It's weird because it's like rebounding is the thing you think that like effort, you just get better, right?
Rebounding is a skill, though.
Yeah, it's a skill, but shooting, actually, guys do improve it.
Yes.
Right? More than even rebounding, it seems like, when it should be the opposite, but somehow it's not.
Muscle memory, reps, 500 threes makes a day. That's how you get better as a shooter, and that's what he's been doing.
Yeah, Ben Simmons is working on that.
Ben Simmons got to just shoot it in the game one time.
Yeah, exactly.
Lastly, James Bouknight. Why do you like him?
Oh, my goodness. This is one of my favorite players in the draft.
Yeah?
Now, I sound like a broken record because I love all these kids.
Yeah.
James Bouknight, 6'5". He is one of the high risers. I've been talking about Bouknight for the last 3 months. He comes back to Stores for his second season and has an explosive year. One of the premier scorers in the draft. He's been unbelievable in workouts. A couple teams told me one of the best shooting workouts they've ever seen. And you see Jamal Murray there. That's the type of combo guard that we're going to see with James Bouknight. He's a little bigger than Murray, a little more explosive, but the pick and roll ability, the ability to really play 1.5, both guard positions. That's Jamal Murray, and that's what James Bouknight is, and that's why he's really gone from 15 to 20 up into that top 10, and why he's one of the most coveted guards in this draft.
How tall is Bouknight?
Bouknight's about 6'5".
Yeah, right. That's not a small guard, even for a combo
And you know the pedigree he has.
UConn. Ray Allen. I mean, I talked to Alex
UConn, Huskies.
Yeah, his skills trainer, and he was saying this kid in a 2-day workout didn't miss a shot. Like, he has really improved. That's
what happens in Stores at Gamble. Those are the kind of
Gamble
things that happen. Max
no
Kellerman.
Jim
I know you haven't been up there with the cows, but that's what happens. All right, churning out all-stars.
Well, you certainly can't argue with the success of the women's team, right? Like, what are you going to say?
Okay.
What are you going to say?
Yeah, the men are coming back too. I believe in healing. All right, speaking of all-stars, how many all-star caliber players tonight?
I think 6 or 8, plus several frontline NBA starters, third and fourth options.
Hold on. 6 to 8 all-stars.
Yeah.
So, like,
we just named four.
There's a difference between an all-star and a perennial all-star, right?
Sure.
Like, a guy makes an all-star team versus a guy lives at the all-star game. How many of these dudes from this draft will live at the all-star game in their careers?
I think 5 or 6, because we haven't even talked about Evan Mobley.
That's a good question.
And then you have Seguin from Turkey, the 6'11 kid who is incredible, Super League Turkish MVP at 18. That's unprecedented. We go back a little bit. We start to think about Trey Mann, Sharif Cooper. These are high-level NBA players who in a normal draft would be lottery picks.
Wow. I mean, that's if you talk about 5 or 6 perennial all-stars, one of the greatest drafts of all time if it turns out.
It's not. It might be 03, 96.
His energy is kind of infectious. I feel even more excited about the draft.
I'm really excited to watch this draft because I love all these kids. Now, Max.
I can tell. I see the enthusiasm.
Now, Max, when I'm wrong in 3 years, maybe I'll buy you a beer.
Don't at me. All right. We'll see more of you later.